Hey, welcome back to Cream City Dreams. It's the podcast where I talk with incredible Milwaukee women who are doing incredible things in our city. Today's guest, if you are a longtime listener, you may remember that I had Lori Frederick on the podcast a couple seasons ago. And Lori, you may remember, is the food writer for On Milwaukee. And I asked her, who is the Milwaukee chef that you would take with you to a desert island? And her answer was none other than today's guest, Nell Benton. Nell is a friend of mine and also somebody who I look to as a wonderful example of permission to pivot, permission to switch it up when it's not working, to pay attention to those full body no's and move into full body yeses, which is what she did when she shifted from the culinary industry into where she is today. So let's dive right into this delicious conversation with Nell Benton. Today on the podcast, I am excited to welcome a dear friend of mine, Nell Benton. Many around the city will know Nell as a chef and a restaurateur and an event planner and a connector and a mentor in the food industry here in Milwaukee, and really just an all-around culinary genius. But I wonder how many will know that she's now in real estate, catering now to people who look to satisfy their taste buds in neighborhoods and homes and architectural styles. Do you like that pun that I slipped in there?
Love it. Love it.
And Nell is actually the first woman that I thought about when I thought about this season of transitions and pivots and life changes, because I know a little of the story. I know a lot of the story behind her decision to get out of the food industry. And I think it's important for other people and other women in particular to hear this story and to see that it's okay to change, even if you're at the height or the pinnacle of your career in something that you spent a lifetime building. Like if it's not working for you anymore, it's okay to get out. And so I'm excited to share Nell's story with the city. And I think a lot of other people will be interested to hear this story as well. So welcome, Nell.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And I have to say, you and I are friends, so I'm going to be extra careful not to reveal anything I shouldn't or tiptoe around inside jokes that we share. But listeners, I have to apologize in advance if we are giggling a lot on this episode. So now, for folks who might not be familiar with you, can you give us a little bit of your story, your Milwaukee story? How did you get here? How did you decide to go into the restaurant industry? Because you didn't start here. And maybe, feel free to take us back into earlier iterations of your story, even before you got to Milwaukee.
Sure. So I grew up mainly in Green Bay, Wisconsin, but my mother is British, my father is American. And so I spent a lot of time in the UK visiting family and friends. And also they would take us to Europe and we got a real taste of different cuisines. And my grandmother in England had a massive garden and she grew all of her own fruits and vegetables. So I learned from an early age, like where my food was coming from. And when I got a bit older, I went to school. I had always worked in restaurants. I worked in kitchens from the time I was 14 onwards, and I loved it. But my parents are both academics, and I kind of thought I should go that route. So I did, and I ended up working in the humanitarian organization field for a long time, and then moved to Europe for a while. When I came back to America, it was the crash of 2008, and I ended up in Florida I was checking out a business opportunity for a company that I worked for in Jersey, UK. And the crash happened. I told my company, let's wrap it up. It's not going to work. And while I was down there, I decided to go to culinary school. And it was kind of a long time coming. I'd been wanting to do it for decades. And my family got behind me and said, you need to do this. You've been talking about it for so long. So I went to the Art Institute in Fort Lauderdale. And as soon as I was done, I moved back up to Milwaukee, where both my sisters had moved to, and started my culinary career here.
And what is that for people who don't know anything about culinary school. Is that like you get there in day one, you learn how to use a knife? Like
Yeah.
what's that like?
Yeah, day one is we cover knife skills.
Ah,
I was the first one to cut myself in the class. I literally was pulling out a knife and I cut myself. At least I got it over and done with. It was great. I loved it. We were just playing in kitchens all day long, learning
yeah.
skills and different cuisines, and it was a great year.
Yeah. Oh, so it's just a 1 year program?
It's a 1 year program.
Wow. And is part of that, in addition to the culinary side of it, is part of it the business side of it? Is it with the intention that everybody who graduates opens up something?
They do go into the business side of it, but you know, uh, it's a fraction of people that graduate from culinary school that actually open their own thing. A
Mm,
lot of people go on to they start as line cooks and they'll work their way up, but not many people actually end up owning their own restaurant.
okay. So you move up to Milwaukee. Do you get into somebody else's kitchen first thing, or where do you go? Right. Because you hadn't lived in Milwaukee before,
No,
right?
no,
Okay.
I had never lived here, but I have a twin sister and an older sister, and they had moved here, and they both had little girls at that time. So I really wanted to be around family. And I just wanted to get back to the Midwest. After living all over the world, the place that called to me the strongest was the Midwest, where people are authentic and friendly and welcoming. So I was really
Mm,
excited to get back here. And the first, I worked at a couple different places, just kind of getting my foot in the door. There was still, it was after the crash, and so there's still jobs were hard to come by. And I worked baking cupcakes at a little bakery out in Brookfield, and then I worked for Saz's for a little while, and then I got into a place called Thirst and Vine in Shorewood, and it was a French wine bar,
mm.
and I worked my way up to becoming the executive chef there. And then after that, I had the opportunity to take over the National Cafe. And that was in 2011.
Mm. Wow. So only 3 years and you're at the national, but you don't own it yet, but you,
No, there was a competition
mm,
to take it over from the previous owner, Michael Diedrich. And he had a price set for it and about, I think, 11 stipulations, and everyone that you met brought the price down. Things like keeping the name the same, keeping the staff on, being a part of the community, keeping the same hours. So in the end, the business cost me $100.
whoa,
Yeah,
wow.
so it was a daunting process to go through, and just kind of because I hadn't had my own place before, but I was ready for it. I was in my 30s. I had worked in finance when I lived in the UK, so I understood the business side of it, and I was passionate about just putting out good food. So it seemed like a really good fit. I got in there. The restaurant was not making any money at that point. We needed to kind of turn it around. I implemented a catering program. We extended the menu. I inherited a fabulous staff, which was super helpful. And
Mm.
as we grew, I brought on more and more staff who were lovely. A lot of them stayed with me for years and years. So I had the national for about 8 years.
Wow. So 2000, well, you started
2000,
there in 2011.
oh, and then it was 2019 that I passed it on over to my longstanding assistant manager.
Okay. Wow. Wow. I mean, what was the moment going from the Thurston Vine in Shorewood that to this place to the National, sorry, that you were like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. Like, do you remember that moment of this is it, I'm gonna do this?
I
Or was it just $100? And so $100, what the heck? Why not?
No, I had gone there. My sister had taken me there because it was such a sweet little spot, kind of in an emerging neighborhood. So it just felt it was this really interesting, vibrant, kind of gritty neighborhood, and it was such a cute building. It was built in 1880. It was really old, cream city brick, gorgeous colors like light blues, and I loved the space. And I went there and I had a meal and I just thought, oh, this could be better. this could this could really be something. This could be a really cute destination spot. And that's before this whole competition happened. So when it came out, a friend of mine sent me the link and I thought, oh, yeah, I could do this.
Hmm. And how did you get to, because you are, I mean, you mention your name to any chef in town and they know who you are. Like, how did you get into, is it that small that everybody knows each other?
It is really small, but along the way, I think going back to my humanitarian roots, I was always very interested in giving back to the community and helping out local nonprofits and organizations. And I created, along with another person, another chef in town, I created a group called Food for Thought. And
Mm.
so we would do these fundraising dinners, collaborative with other chefs from Milwaukee, and choose the organization to be the beneficiary of the money raised, and things like, Big Brothers Big Sisters. We did pathways. We did a whole host, and we raised over, I think, $100,000 for local charities. And in doing that, we were working with different chefs from different restaurants, and you just kind of build a camaraderie that way.
Yeah, because I know that a lot of people do look to you as a mentor. Like I'm thinking in particular of Chef Gregory Leone from Amalinda, right? Did he start with pop-ups in the
He
National or?
did. Yep. He had moved from San Francisco, and I had met him at a fundraiser, and I had tried his food and loved it. He's such a talented chef, and he sent me an email and said, "Could we meet? I'd love to see if you'd be open to do it for us to do a pop up at your restaurant." And I have had so much help in my career, all my careers. I've had so much help that I always feel you really need to pay it forward. So I said, yes, come on in. And we chatted, and I loved his vision. I loved his menu ideas. And so he did a pop up for about a year at the National, and then was able to open his own space. And I
Mm,
was really happy to be able to be a part of it. He's
yeah.
now such a gem in Milwaukee that it's cool that he had his start at my restaurant.
Yes, absolutely. What was it like? And I don't know if this has changed any, but what was it like being a woman chef in Milwaukee at that time?
It was a challenge. I'll be honest. It I had people coming up to me saying, things like, "Oh, did your husband write the menu? And did your husband buy this for you?" And I was like, "I'm not married, and I'm a chef. This is mine." We would have vendors come in, and they would go up to the tallest guy in the restaurant, amongst my workers, and assume that he was the owner. Um,
Wow.
just crazy comments. It being a female chef owner at that time was rare. There were
Mhm.
only, I don't know, 4 or 5 at the time. So yeah, it was tough, but you don't dwell on that. You just put your head down and do it.
Mm, mm. Is there anything that looking back on it that you would have done differently, or something, maybe some advice that you would have given your 2011 self?
Yeah, I jumped into it feeling like I had to save the business. We were kind of hemorrhaging money, and when I took it over, and I was working there seven. We were open 7 days a week. I was working 7 days a week. I didn't pay myself for almost the first year. Like I literally some tips and handouts for my family when I was getting it off the ground and implementing the catering gig. So I was working insane hours. I was burning out. And it took me, I think it was my second year when I decided to close on Mondays. And there was a
Mm,
huge backlash. People were like, you can't close on Mondays. You'll alienate your customers and they won't come back if they come to the door and you're closed on Monday. And I just thought I have to for my mental health. There's no reason anybody should be working 7 days a week.
mm.
So I did, and it was the best decision I ever made. But going back, if I was giving myself some advice, I would have told myself from the beginning, close the doors on Monday. So yeah, I think you have to have a work-life balance, and otherwise everything suffers. Your personal life suffers, your work suffers. And I found that it was only when I'd let myself go on trips 1 to 2 times a year, And in the beginning, it was one. Later on, it was two. And I'd go in kind of the low season in late fall, early spring. And those times when I was able to get on a plane and not be available for any kind of work situation, any work calls, nothing, that was when I was my most creative because I
Mm.
could actually just sit and think about the menu and think about staffing and um, you know what various things I was doing in the community, and that's when I had like all my good ideas. Is when I was actually taking a break.
Yeah. So important, that kind of self-care and self-compassion of just noticing that and realizing that I just need some time. I just need a break right now. And
Definitely.
that is gonna, I mean, not dissimilar from parenting too, right? Like give me a little bit of space and then I'm gonna be a much better,
I'm
much
going to
better
love
mother.
you more
I
at the end of the
promise.
day when you come home from school.
Yes, yes, yeah. Um, does it so in terms of it being difficult with being a woman with people coming in making stupid comments and whatnot, what did it feel competitive amongst the restaurateur, other restaurants in the city at that time, or did it feel like
Definitely.
okay?
Definitely. It, we have a good group of chefs, and people are very supportive, and they will have your back, but it's also very competitive. As it should be. I mean, it helps keep you on your toes. It elevates your food. But I remember when I started doing ramen at the restaurant, there was no other place doing ramen. And one other place opened just before I started doing ramen. And I had been practicing for a year before I felt comfortable enough to put ramen on the menu. And immediately got comments like, "Oh, you're kind of flying off the short tails of this other person that's putting out ramen," and it was just kind of people tried to pit us against each other, and it was just kind of a little bit cutthroat.
Mm,
And so that was kind of a bummer starting it off, but
yeah. Well, can we talk about why you were doing ramen for a year? Because you wrote a flippin' book about it, right?
so I got a little obsessed. I was ramen was not happening in Milwaukee, and I was driving to Madison to get my ramen fix, and I thought this is ridiculous. And so I thought I need to learn how to do ramen. And it was so weird because back then the broth was just a closely guarded secret, and you couldn't find anything on the internet. Very very little.
Hmm.
There were some books that were written, but it was nothing like it is now, where ramen has been a focal point for, I don't know, probably the last like 8 or 9 years. It's been super popular in America. It was still just emerging back then. So it's a very long, intricate process, and I just wanted to nail it. I didn't want to put it on the menu until I was 100% sure that it was as perfect as I could get it.
Mm.
Um, so I did that. And then I ended up, after a while of doing that, I ended up getting contacted from Penguin Book Publishing. And they had seen reviews, and they were interested in the fact that I was a female chef owner. And they asked me if I would like to write a book. And I said, absolutely. So I talked to my staff and I said, can you guys take over while I do this intensely for 6 months? And they said yes. And so I wouldn't have been able to write this book if I hadn't had such great staff. So I just kind of hunkered down and did recipe testing. I went to Japan. I studied ramen there. And after 6 months, I turned in my manuscript.
Mm. And is it still available? Could people find it?
It is. It's still available, and it was so cool. I was talking with one of the people at Penguin and asked them about sales, and this was a couple years ago. And at that point, it had I want to say 15,000 sales. So I was quite happy with that.
Yeah. Wow. So do you get royalty checks every year?
I don't, because and this is another thing I would have gone back and told my younger self, but because I was a first time author, I got just a upfront payout.
Okay.
And had I been a little bit more savvy about it, I would have demanded royalty checks.
Yeah. Hmm. Interesting. Well, now for your next book.
Maybe.
Do you have any anything on the cards? Any other books in mind?
There's a couple I have marinating that I've had for a while, but I am too busy to think about
Mm,
that right now.
yeah. Well, let's sort of look at this idea of balance and there tell me about let's talk a little bit about kind of getting to more present day. Was there a defining moment when you're like, okay, this is it. I can't do this anymore. Like talk to me about that progression.
Yeah. So there was a defining moment, but to back up a little bit, when I was roughly 40, I had the National and I had decided to open another restaurant with Andy Larson called
Mm,
Bowls Milwaukee. And round about that time, a old friend of mine had moved to town, someone I'd known since I was 6 years old. We went to grade school and high school together, and we ended up dating.
mhm.
And we decided that we were going to get married and have a family. And I was a little bit scared at first. He really wanted a family, and I was hesitant at first because I had these two restaurants. I was in the midst of opening up bowls, and I was still, you know, very much in the day to day activities of the National. So I was a little bit hesitant, but I said, let me think about it. Let's shelve this for a few months, and I'll come back to you. And so at the end of that, I decided that yes, I do want kids. And I kind of thought it was off the table because I was already 40 and I hadn't dated anybody that I'd wanted to have kids with. But once I kind of wrapped my head around it, I was really excited about it. And I convinced myself that anything is possible and I could go, keep going along with my two restaurants and I would strap them on me while I was working. And, it was going to be no problem. So I had my first child, Ella, and I did bring her to work. I had her kind of in a car seat sometimes in the cafe. I had her strapped to me when I was cooking at Bowls. Andy would hold her while I was cooking at Bowls. And then when I was pregnant with my second, I was out for a walk with my husband and with Ella, and I hadn't had a day off in 2 weeks.
Oh.
And my chef called in sick for Bowls. And I threw my phone down. I threw it on the grass and I'm like, I'm done. I am done. I can't do it anymore. And it was this overwhelming feeling of relief.
Mhm.
And I immediately got the ball rolling I sold my restaurant to my long-term manager at the National. And so we did kind of a big handover where I taught her all the back office and stuff like that. And then for Andy, he, I left him. I love Andy, but I had to leave him.
Sorry,
And
Andy.
he understood. He was lovely about it. He knew that I was absolutely overwhelmed. And it was sad because it was the end of an era and it was the end of something that I absolutely loved and poured my heart and soul into and my blood, sweat, and tears. But it was just totally impossible to have two young ones and two restaurants.
Mm.
Um, and I'm the type of person that I have to be there. I have to have my hands on it. And I think that even if you do have great staff, your restaurant is always going to be better off if you are present. People want to see the owner. They want to see that you are putting in all you can to make it successful. So yeah, it was a hard decision, but it was very clear to me when I needed to make it. So
Mm.
after wrapping things up, everybody asks me now, do you miss it? And I miss my clientele. I had great clientele because the National, there was a lot of schools and nonprofits around there, and I loved the people that would come in. They were my regulars, and they were lovely. So I missed that part of it.
Mm.
But I don't miss the work. I don't miss, working all day and then coming home and doing all the back office stuff. I don't miss that at all.
Mm. I guess that age old question, can women have it all? Nell's
They
shaking her head
can't.
no.
They cannot. They can't. I mean, you might be able to, but you're not going to be able to do everything well. Something is
Mm.
going to give. I know very few female chef owners with kids. Very few. There's
Mm.
two that I know of well, three that I know of in town. And they've said it was really, really hard. So I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you get slack for it from the industry back in 2019 when you did it?
Not really. No, I think everybody was quite supportive because they knew, I mean, they saw me and I was constantly either pregnant or had a baby on my hip. So I
Mm.
think everybody understood. It was sad, especially with the national that, I'd had for so long, but it was exciting too because Angie, who had been with me from the beginning, she took it over and I knew that she would keep the vibe alive. Like
Mm.
I really was lucky that I had a staff that um, we were there for our customers. We always felt, and I always needed them to feel grateful for everybody that walked in the door. I never wanted to be one of those restaurants where staff were kind of making snide comments about customers or not making them feel welcome. Like my whole ethos of having a place where you're serving people is like serve them fully, serve them with food, serve them with kindness, serve them with being welcoming. That was really important to me. So I feel like Angie has kept that alive, which is great.
Mm. Okay, so that's 2019. And then we get this big pandemic. We all know what happens in March of 2020. At that point, like in 2019, are you just like, okay, now I'm taking a sabbatical. I'm not going to do anything for a little while? Is that, I mean,
Well, what
obviously you have your
happened
second.
was I had my second, and right at the time that this was all happening, I was almost out of the restaurant scene when my husband, who is Army Reserves, got mobilized. And so we ended up leaving to go to New York, upstate New York, to Fort Drum for a year. So it was perfect timing uh, that I got out because A, the pandemic happened, and B, we had this mobilization. And so we did that for a year and just kind of waited out the pandemic. And then when I came back, I was a little bit lost in terms of what my role was and where I wanted to be and what I wanted to be doing. I always knew that I did not want to be a stay-at-home mother. I have the utmost respect for stay-at-home mothers. I think it's the hardest job in the world, and I just it's not what I wanted to do. I love working. I love working, and so I needed to kind of find something that would allow me to do that. And I had always had properties. I had, when I owned the National, I owned the building, and there was a residential unit up on top of the upstairs. And so I rented that out as an Airbnb. The space next door was also part of the property lot, and that was an antique store that I rented out. And so I had learned how to manage properties and also how to renovate. I really got into renovating. I always loved working with my hands. So I thought real estate might actually be a good fit because I had already dabbled in it. It made sense to me. And I owned some properties. So that's how I kind of veered off to the real estate world.
Mm. And so you go back to school, you get your real estate license.
Yep. Yep. Got my real estate license and I ended up joining Shore West, which is a great organization. They give back a lot to the community. They've got a lot of programs that they help out with. So it felt like a very good fit. I am part of the North Shore office, and everyone I work with is just super kind. And it's great to be back in an environment where there's that camaraderie and you feel like people have your back and it's stimulating and it's fun. It was really good to join the workforce, to get back into the workforce.
Mm. How do you think your skills as a chef and entrepreneur in that sense translate to real estate? Like, are there unexpected overlaps between the two or expected overlaps?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's really a service that you're providing somebody, whether it's, helping them sell their house or helping them find a house. And coming from the service industry, it just kind of feels very natural.
Were there people as you're thinking about leaving the restaurant industry, moving, even if you didn't know at the time that it was you were going to go into real estate, are there people that you look to for
Yeah,
inspiration or like
yeah, there
guidance?
definitely. There was one guy, his name is Chris, and he was actually the owner of the antique store next to the National for a long time, and then he got into real estate, and he renovates houses beautifully. He is a total craftsman. And he helped me with the sale of a couple of properties, and I just saw how much fun he was having. He was so good at it, and he kind of showed me the right way to do it. So that definitely contributed to my decision to go into real estate.
Mm, because you were also having fun with your own, yeah, you had some Airbnbs, you said.
I had one. Yep,
What?
I have one. And I just renovated a house down in St. Francis. And it's funny, most of the business I've had in real estate has been people from the culinary community, which is awesome because, it goes back to that camaraderie and we always wanted to help each other. And now I'm able to do that in kind of a different light.
Yeah. What would you say, I don't know, maybe more philosophically or uh, existentially about just pivoting in life? Because as you said, you started in humanitarian, then culinary, now real estate, like three very different
And finance.
and finance. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's really important to pivot when you need to and don't get stuck in anything. I think people are scared of change and I love change. I don't even like to drive to work the same way, 2 days running. I really
Mm,
like, new things. And so I've never really been scared to pivot. I just see it as a new fun challenge, really.
yeah. Well, where do you think that came from?
Um, I don't know. I think my parents have always pushed us to follow whatever it is that we are interested in, but not get tied down to anything that's not actually bringing us joy.
Mm, I love that. How do you think the pivot for you, or how has it affected you personally? Your personal life or your sense of purpose?
There were two things I really wanted to mention uh, because it's something that I think I've talked to you about in the past, but I found myself mulling over how I interact with people a lot this past summer. And I've been so lucky to have met you and to have met all the lovely women that you are associated with and getting together to do some fun ladies nights. I realized that I over the years of being a chef owner, I had learned to be very, very stoic and not show emotion. That was especially in such a competitive field, in a male dominated field. I just felt like you had to be, when you're in the restaurant industry, very kind of closed down, not closed down, very stoic.
Mm.
Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, And so it's taken me a really long time it's taken me a really long time to do two things since leaving the restaurant world. One, open up a little bit and be more open, honest, and vulnerable. That's just something that was completely kind of shut off when I was working in the restaurant world. And it's been a huge kind of learning curve. And I hadn't realized how kind of walled off I had been for so long.
Well, it's like you have to keep your guard up
Yes.
because you are, well, you're, as you said, you're constantly a barrage of attacks of just stupid things
Yes.
and
You have,
stupid comments. And you have to, almost like you have to prove yourself, like you have to work extra hard to
yes.
show that I can do this just like a man can. So,
Yes.
F you. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that totally makes
In,
sense.
in an industry where you're judged every single second of the day, you just develop these, you just have your guard up all the time.
Mm.
So it's been a real process, kind of tearing it down a bit and being more available and vulnerable and just kind of me, I guess.
Mm. Mm.
And the other thing that I have learned is to slow down. I always felt that if you weren't going a million miles an hour, that you weren't being successful and you weren't building anything. And it really took me a long time to be able to sit down and just do nothing or read a book or do some self care without feeling terribly guilty. Um, and I think that real estate allows me to, you definitely have periods where it's very intense and you're working really hard, but there's also a lot of downtime as well. And it's given me kind of a much better work life balance.
Mm. Which I'm sure your husband and your children appreciate. They get to see
Definitely.
you more often.
Definitely. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I feel very fortunate to be on the receiving end of this newfound joy and fun and vulnerability and time, and because I feel very grateful for our friendship and for the way you are such you're I often feel like you're paying it forward to me in terms of your supporting my ideas and my silly endeavors and adventures and fun nights. So thank you for I'm grateful for this too.
Well, thank you.
I have just some fun little questions, kind of rapid fire.
Sure.
Um, if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, or have one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be? Desert island meal, that sort of question.
Can I just say breakfast?
Mm.
Breakfast is my favorite meal. My like a full English breakfast is kind of my comfort food.
Mm.
So if I had to eat one meal, it would be that. If I had to eat one particular food, I would have to say it would be rice.
Mm.
I
Oh,
know.
interesting.
I could never ever get bored of rice.
Huh. Wow. Just straight up white rice
Straight
or
up white rice.
wow. Hmm. Can you get those English sausages, like the kind of thick, mushy kind
Yes.
somewhere here?
You can get bangers up at um, meat Steve's Meat Market in Sheboygan. Um,
Hmm.
what's the name of it? I'll have to find you the name of it.
Okay. All right, Steve, we're
But yeah,
coming for you.
yeah, it's a fabulous butcher shop up there. And he
Mm.
used to deliver to the National. We had the full English breakfast on the menu.
Oh, fun. If you could cook for anyone in the world, who would it be?
Oh,
Or did you cook for anybody? Did you ever get anybody famous coming into the National?
we had Chris Christie. And we also had the national band come in and eat at the National.
Oh, like
Yeah.
the United States National Band? Or what is the National Band? Oh, the
The
National.
National. The National.
I am so not cool. I'm like thinking of like trombone coming in. Okay.
I think there have been a couple other bands, but my staff knew who they were and I didn't.
Um, do you still cook as a hobby? Do you
I
still enjoy
do.
cooking?
I love it. I'll never tire of it. I love it.
Mm. What's the one thing that your family loves that you cook most?
So I started on this sourdough kick a couple years ago, and I'm now making sourdough for everyone in my family, and they won't let me stop. So I literally make it every day, and I also give some away to neighbors and friends. So I love doing that, and every single loaf is kind of its own thing. So I don't think I'll ever get bored of it. Otherwise, I don't know. I love cooking just about anything. This morning, I was making chocolate mousse for
Oh,
for
for
tonight's.
breakfast?
No, no. Well, you could eat it for breakfast, and that would be fine. Nobody judges. But for dessert tonight, the kids love it.
Is there a cooking hack that you have for busy folks who might not have a ton of time? Any secrets or tricks or
When
tips?
I don't have a lot of time, my go-to is uh, chicken and salad or chicken rice and salad. It's super easy. The kids will always eat it. It's relatively healthy. You can either do a sauce or not. It's fine. So that's kind of my go-to, or like a Mediterranean pasta with
Mm,
olives, sun-dried tomatoes, artichoke hearts, and a little bit of lemon juice, some parm. Kids will eat that right up. So,
mm,
I mean, I'm a little bit limited because I am cooking for kids.
yeah. Yeah.
And if I try anything fancy, they'll kind of be a little bit skeptical, but they're getting there. They've got good palates. I'm proud of all the things that they actually are willing to eat.
Yeah. Oh, I'll have to send my kids down for you. We started out so well and now it's like I don't know. I don't make like I'm not a short order cook. We have one meal and that's what we eat. And if they don't like it, they just, they don't
That's the
eat.
way to do it. Yep, that's the way
Yeah.
to do it.
But yeah, they feel like they used to be a little more adventurous than they are now. But
So I've been sneaking. Oh, I've got two hacks
okay.
to get your kids to eat different things. I've been sneaking little bits of spice, like heat spice,
Mm.
in food just to build up their tolerance. And sometimes they notice it, and sometimes they don't. But they're definitely building up more of an appreciation and a tolerance for it. And
Ooh.
then this other hack that I
Wait, let me ask
read.
you about that
Yeah,
before you go on. Do you mean like pepper flakes or like cayenne or real jalapeno? Like what are you doing? What are you
I
telling me?
do red chili flakes.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and then I read somewhere a while ago, and I think this is brilliant. We always sit down for a family meal, except for if we do like a pizza night, then we'll eat in front of the TV and watch a movie. But I read somewhere that this woman said she would do a smorgasbord of anything that she was trying to get her kids to eat more of, or just to introduce foods. And she'd have them watch TV while kind of eating it because they'd mindlessly take it. And it takes kids like 7 times of having something before they're like, yeah, okay, they like it. So I thought this was brilliant, and I did try it with Ella and James with various food items, and they it really works. It really works because they're
Oh.
not really thinking about it, and they're just kind of eating off this smorgasbord of all these different things you want them to try. And obviously, you should put some things that they really like on there as well. But they are so engrossed in what they're watching that they forget to be like, I don't like this; it's unfamiliar. So if you want your kid to
Oh,
like something
yeah.
specific, try doing that a few times with them.
Interesting. So like bluey and Brussels sprouts. Oh, I love it. I love it. I'm going to try that because that would blow my kids' mind if they were like, Mom's going to let us sit in front of the TV for
but
dinner.
but only if they eat what's on this tray.
Yeah. Oh, I love
Like,
that. Okay.
yeah, it works.
I might make that exception because we don't have we don't, yeah, we'd have to go to a different room. So, oh, well, is there anything that I didn't ask you about that you want people to know about you or about transitioning or pivoting or change or anything?
I would say don't be scared of change. Change can be the best thing that you could ever do for yourself. And you won't know until you try it.
Yeah. And I suppose, I mean, being in your industry prepared you well for this, prepares people well for this when you are somewhere that's being judged all the time, when you might get a Yelp review that's like this place is garbage or whatever, whatever. I'm sure you've had your share of bad reviews. Like that, you just have to let stuff roll off your back, right? And get
Yeah,
up and go do it
you
again.
develop really thick skin. You have to, and it serves you well in anything else that you want to do because you're never going to be judged as harshly
Yeah.
as you are as a chef.
Yeah, yeah. I was talking to a woman last night who was saying she will, you sit down at the dinner table and normally you ask about, oh, what nice thing happened today? What's your peach or pit or however you rose and thorn, however you call it at your table. But she says she sits down and talks about these are the mistakes I made today. This is what I did wrong.
Yep,
And I just thought that is genius because she's modeling for her kids like, yeah, made a mistake. You know what? No big deal. I'm gonna get back up and
absolutely.
try better tomorrow.
Yep.
So uh
Mistakes mean that you're trying.
yeah, yeah, totally. Absolutely. Before we go, just a couple things. First of all, if people are listening and might need a real estate agent, I would say Nell Benton is your gal. How do they get a hold of you? Tell us about what you do and your elevator pitch for yourself there.
Yeah, if you just Google Nell Benton, I'll come up with Shore West. I have my own webpage, and you can either email me or call me, and we can talk about whatever it is that you need. I've been doing a lot of real estate reviews, comp analysis. So if you are curious about what your house is worth at this point, I am happy to do that for you. You'll just get a great idea of the growth of your assets, which is always good to have in your back pocket. So, yeah, feel free to reach out via phone or text, and I'd be happy to help.
Awesome. So you have room on your roster for new clients for both sales and buying?
Yep, I always have room.
Awesome. Awesome. And the very last question that I always ask guests at the end of each show is, because this is a podcast about women and women who dream and dreamy women, who's a Milwaukee woman who inspires you? Could be at any point along your career, could be now, could be, when you were first starting out, but somebody in the city who you see as living her dream.
The first person that came to mind when you said that was Anna, my sister. She really is living her dream, and now she has a dream house. thanks to me.
Yeah.
But she's such an amazing person, and she has given back to Milwaukee and Wisconsin in such a huge way. She was responsible for the COVID vaccine rollout in the state. She works under Tony Evers, goes to Madison a couple times a week, and she's an amazing human being. She's somebody that I really look up to. So I would say she was the first person that popped into my head when you asked me that.
Oh, I love that. And I love Anna too. And I agree. Anna is wonderful. So yeah, I'll have to get her on the pod too.
A little bit of nepotism. I'm trying to think if there's somebody that I know it'll pop in my head as soon as we're off, but there are so many amazing women here. Karen Bell. Karen Bell is an amazing person who has given a lot back to the community, and has a fabulous restaurant, Bavette. And she does it with a small child. So I'm very much in awe of her. She's such a talented person.
Love her too. I'm going to see her tomorrow night. We're going for dinner there tomorrow night. Well, thank you for finally agreeing to come on my podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I've been
this is part of the opening up.
Yeah. Thank you for doing it live with, hundreds of listeners. But honestly, you always give me so much food for thought on what it means to live a good life and to, do as much as you can with as much balance and goodness and joy and all the things I love. I'm so grateful for our friendship, and yeah.
Me too. Thank you, Megan.
I hope you enjoyed that, listeners. It's always fun to have friends on the show. And I have been trying to get Nell on this show for a long time. And she is so humble, doesn't really like to talk about herself. So I'm grateful that she finally agreed. Thank you, Nell. And like I said at the very beginning, I really look to her as a model for other women to go ahead and give themselves that permission to change, to say, you know what? I loved this. There was a period when I loved this, but it's not working for me anymore. And so I am going to pivot. And especially for women who are in maybe male dominated industries and who leave for work-life balance or for their family, I think they sometimes get some slack. And I was happy to hear that she didn't get a lot of that when she decided to leave. Although I think, of course, we sometimes give that to ourselves as well. But I really wanted to have her on to share that experience, that moment of throwing her phone down and saying, nope, this is it. I have had enough. Because I think sometimes especially as women, we don't always listen to those full bodied no's. We stuff that down. We tell ourselves, or we fill ourselves with what we should do, what society says we should do, what other people tell us we should do, without listening to our own intuition. And so I think women who do listen to that intuition and do listen to that voice inside that says, not anymore, I think it's really important for us to see that. I will put all the ways you can communicate with Nell if you are interested in buying or selling a house. I can only imagine what a fabulous realtor she would be to work with. And who knows, you might even get some recipes, some secret recipes from Bowls or the National or even her ramen cookbook. And if you do work with her, please tell her you heard about her on Cream City Dreams. If you like this episode, if you know somebody out there who is in a field that maybe their heart is just not in anymore and it's time for a pivot, would you share this episode with them? I would love it if you would. I'd also love it if you would leave me a review on Apple Podcasts, or if you really, really want to show your appreciation for Cream City Dreams podcast, buy me a coffee. There's a link at the bottom of the show notes or at the website creamcitydreams.com. Buy me a coffee, help me keep the lights on and the podcast running. I would be so grateful. So grateful, in fact, that I will be back next week with another Milwaukee woman living her dream in the Cream City. Until then, Milwaukee, keep on dreaming.